Hello, everyone, and welcome to the episode 83 of the Office Hours podcast. Happy Canada Day, Mo. We took a little break for the holidays, but now we're back.
Yeah,
We're gonna
yeah,
continue our conversation. Did you have a good Canada Day?
yeah, I did. I did. It was nice. Do you know about the Canadian culture? I think there are like some things that you have to do, like you have to eat at like some restaurant. I mean, Timmy.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. You,
It,
you you
Timmy's
need to
still,
you need to try poutine. You need to try
yeah,
Montreal smoked meat. You need to watch
exactly.
hockey. You need to say
Yeah,
a lot, which I do, and there's a bunch of other things
yeah. There's something
to
about
qualify.
beaver. Something about
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
beaver tails.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Have you had one of those?
Beaver tails? Not really. I mean, and now I'm not really even supposed to, if we're continuing the topic of our conversation. But I
Well,
can go
yeah,
for some Montreal smoked meat, which would
yeah.
fit.
Yeah, that would fit. Montreal smoke. You know what? I noticed that there is a lot of like stuff like this around Montreal. Like they have like meat, spices, and stuff like this. I don't know if this is a general thing or like Montreal just got like really good advertisement. I don't know. Is it general for? You know what? I'd probably say yeah.
I
Maybe.
never been. I never been to Montreal, so I can't really say.
Maybe.
I hope to
Maybe.
go someday. I heard that it's quite beautiful, but.
Eh, well, we'll see. Well, when you go, like, let me know. Let me know what you think about it. How you feel about it. And how is the diet going? After
Uh,
all this while, all the holidays, celebrations, how many times did you cheat? Are you
with
back?
varying degrees of success, shall I say. We went camping and I
Mhm.
couldn't quite maintain it.
Oh,
So, plus, it's summer and we went to Okanagan, so that means like fresh fruit and cherries and peaches and all that kind of stuff. And I still love me some peaches and some cherries, so I've been eating a lot of cherries. Um, so I'm trying my best, let's say.
yeah. I know. I think that's one of the issues I had with the diet. I also like. I feel like my least favorite part of it is having to explain it to people. you know? And then someone offers you food and you're like, well, I can't eat that. And then they ask you why, but it's so good. And then well, I'm on a diet. And now you have to explain yourself. It's always the hardest thing.
Yeah, you should just be like, I'm allergic. People don't
Ah,
usually question it.
no, they do. I'm pretty sure they do. Like they'll be like, so you're allergic to apples? Like you're allergic
Hey man,
to
people
red.
claim to be allergic to all sorts of things. I don't even think it surprises anyone. It was like this thing that I saw recently where somebody wrote, it's like, I called an Uber and the app said that my driver was deaf, and so like I showed him a message on my phone saying about how like whatever something about being deaf, and the guy turns back and is like, "Oh no, you can talk to me. I just put I'm deaf so that my passengers don't talk to me." So, it's kind of the same thing. You just say, like, oh, I'm allergic. And then that sort of all the questions go away at that point and you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually kind of smart. To be
Yeah.
honest,
Yeah.
that's kind of smart from the guy. Because like I know a lot of people talk random things to they treat the drivers like they're therapists, like a free
Mm-hmm.
therapist. But
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
you
Free
know,
confession booth on wheels.
yeah,
Yeah.
do you think diets can actually help with allergies? Like if you change your diet, do you think this can help with like allergies?
That's an interesting question because arguably allergies, they have to do with like histamines. And I think a lot of it, strangely enough, if you go for like aged beef, due to the process of aging, that thing accumulates quite a lot of histamine. So if you have allergies and you want to switch to carnivore to alleviate some of that, people would say like, oh, don't like just go for fresh, don't go for aged, because that alone can like still keep it
Mhm.
happening, right? But I think overall it's also hard to say. Is like, okay, like you have some allergies, but maybe stuff you consider allergies are just responses to something that your body doesn't like, not on like histamine immune system response level, but more like irritation to your gut that manifests in some sort of physical symptoms like rashes or redness or whatever, what have you. And if you eliminate a lot of that, I think it can alleviate a lot of things, I would imagine. So even if it's not like curing your allergy, it might help. And the other cool thing is I read that like people who are exposed to allergic substances um, from young age tend to not develop allergies to those substances. So like you know how in United States, like if you bring peanuts into a high school, it's basically considered like a terrorist act because oh my god,
Really?
somebody
Oh
might have
yeah.
peanut allergy, right, or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah. In
And
the US.
they put it like may have been in contact. You know, we were on a plane and they give you like this little bag of nuts, and it's like may have been in contact of peanuts. It's like it's a bag of nuts. Like what do you mean it may have been in
Yeah.
contact? Like what?
What else would
Peanuts
it
are
be?
inside of it. You're saying like what is inside of it that it may have been in contact with peanuts? Is it just like a
Yeah.
simulation?
Yeah.
But
That's interesting.
yeah, they say that
Hmm.
I heard that I think in Israel they have a peanut. It's like corn puffs covered in peanut brittle of or not brittle, but like peanut dust. It's like
Hmm.
a snack that they have in there, and like all the kids basically love it, and the incidence of them having peanut allergies are fairly low.
Mm.
So basically, like
Okay.
if you live your life in a sterile environment and you never uh, poke your immune system and be like, hey, look at this thing, look at that thing, train on this, train on that, and you get exposed to it, you're gonna probably have way more allergies than like if you eat dirt when you're a kid. So you know, if your
You
kids eat
know,
dirt, let them eat dirt at least a little bit.
yeah, maybe. The thing is, I noticed like I don't know too much about allergies, but I feel like maybe I'm not sure if I understand how some people are actually like born with like serious allergies. Because I've seen some people have like serious allergies like shrimps. And I wonder like
Mm,
how can you but when they eat these things, maybe they have like really severe facial swellings and like stuff like
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
really know how, but shrimps is good. Like everyone, I mean, many people like shrimps, but
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's like shrimp specifically. It's like a lot of shellfish, but maybe they have it inherited through like their mother's immune system as well, because like newborns, provided they've been born naturally, they get a lot of immune training from their mothers. I think. I
yeah,
think that's how it
yeah,
works, at
maybe.
least partially.
I think,
So maybe they acquire it that way,
mhm,
which is quite interesting. That
yeah,
you know, thankfully I don't seem to have any allergies, or
mm,
like a lot of my friends they like have allergies, especially like in spring, like hay fever, like they get like itchy eyes and all that good stuff.
good stuff.
Um,
You said.
well, it's not good obviously, but you know it's just an expression. But
Yeah,
thankfully I've never been cursed with that, so it's pretty
yeah,
nice. I
yeah,
think maybe a little bit like when there's like a lot of not even pollen, you know, like the white sort of thing that flies
yeah. That
around all the
flies
time. What's
in
it
the
called?
summer.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Pollen. I think it's pollen, right?
No, no, pollen is like the pollen is different. This is, but anyway, you know what I'm saying. It's like I think when there's like a lot of it, I get like a little bit of an irritation in my throat. But for most part, it's pretty easy. Like I don't have to take any drugs for it. I don't
Hmm.
have like stuffed nose or runny nose or itchy eyes or runny eyes or anything like that. So thankfully, and I can eat shrimp as well. In fact, you know, sometimes I buy that shrimp thing at Costco and just eat. But you know,
Yeah,
that thing's gotten really expensive lately. Holy
I
shit, it's like 20
know.
bucks.
Like, why? Why? I was talking with my someone recently. I was like, if you if you live in this part of the world, I mean, there could be other benefits to like staying here. But one thing I don't understand is how expensive food are. And the good ones too. Like, you could buy like for you to actually like even if you want to like eat good, like you need to really spend the money to do this. And I think this is probably like one of the challenges of people switching to like diets like carnivore or like even
Hmm.
other serious. Many people I've heard actually switch to more plant-based diet because vegetable is cheaper than meat. So
Yeah,
people
they
are not really
certainly are.
eating people are not really eating veggies because they like it. They eat it because it's cheaper.
That is certainly true. But it's also weird. It's like, why are they that much cheaper? Because I think production wise, it's quite complicated for growing vegetables, right? Like, I don't know. Have you ever seen this show called Clarkson's Farm on Amazon? Which is Jeremy Clarkson, the guy from Top Gear. He like several
Probably.
years ago he bought a farm and now he's like basically farming his own land, trying to grow crops and like sell them.
Mhm.
Obviously, he's independently wealthy person, so
This,
having this farm succeed does not determine his life outcomes
yeah.
as much. But like the amount of effort that it takes in order to grow like vegetables and grains, it's insane. So I don't quite understand why, unless there's some shenanigans in form of like subsidies or something, like why they are that much cheaper, because it takes a lot of effort to do. I
Yeah.
think that growing cattle ranching is probably comparable in terms of effort, so it should be comparable in terms of cost and price, but I don't know. I don't know how that works in terms of economics, in terms of logistics. I think a lot of it has to do with like vegetables you can just ship half across the world in a container and they kind of made it work okay. Whereas with beef, the shelf life is not that long unless you do freeze everything. And I mean, they do. Like, we still get like lamb from New Zealand and Australia and things like that. I think New Zealand most part.
So we're even shipping livestock.
No, no, no. I think they ship products. They don't necessarily ship livestock directly. I think shipping livestock would probably destroy any sort of flavor profile because those animals will be freaking out all the time.
Mhm.
Which kind of there's a couple of things that I wanted to touch on last time that we didn't really get a chance to.
Mhm.
But you know, a lot of people would say, "Oh, like if you want to be ethical, you have to switch to veganism because otherwise you're like harming animals." And I don't know. There's a lot of this,
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it. I've heard
yeah, almost like
it.
propaganda degree
Mhm.
of people saying like, oh, you just hate animals, you like to see animals suffer, or that's why you eat meat, and like how dare you eat meat, the animal suffers, and blah blah blah. And yeah, I don't think it's not a very good take. First of all, I don't think that most people want to see animals suffer even if they
No,
consume them as food.
no.
I think a very, very small percentage would genuinely enjoy animals suffering. And I think for most part, the goal is not to have them suffer as much as possible. Like, I mean, sure, like we have to be perfectly clear about it. Like, they do die in the end, but it's not about the suffering necessarily. So I kind of wanted to get that out of the picture. Even, I don't know, uh, there's this character called Temple Grandin. I think they made a movie about her. I don't know. Is she still alive? I'm not quite sure. But basically, she was this autistic woman who was sort of very knowledgeable about livestock and livestock management, and she like designed modern slaughterhouses to reduce like the
Mhm.
stress in animals and reduce basically them having to suffer. So it's all like kind of done in a way where it's like least stressful environment possible. And that happened like probably like I don't know in the 60s or 70s or something. So the idea that it's all there just to cause harm to animals is kind of preposterous because you know a lot of
If
vegans
we,
kind of
s-
be
if
sanctimonious, holier
we,
than thou. It's like, oh, you eat animals, you're such an evil person. It's like, no, I need to survive, and that's the best way for me to do that, and so that's what I do.
the the thing about this is that this particular point is that people forget that plants are also living things, and they also have life. So just just as animals have life, plants also have life. So
Yeah.
it's not because they don't talk or they don't make sounds, they are also living things. So cutting off
Pretty
that leaf,
much. Yeah.
cutting off that leaf is also endangering that plant. So yeah. So in a way, we are all doing the same thing. You just chose your preference at the end of
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah.
So this is how I say it. But I wonder, like we were still talking about how this is cheaper, and I was
Hmm.
wondering like could it be also because there is like different classes of it? There is the organic produce, and
Hmm.
there is the inorganic. Should we call it inorganic or chemically produced? Chemically produced.
Well, I think the only meaningful difference is like the use of like fertilizers and pesticides and things like that. And I think with
Mhm.
organic, you're supposedly not using man-made fertilizer and pesticides. At least that's how I understand it, which
Well,
carries a premium.
does that? What's the effect of this in human health? Do you know about like stuff like this?
Well, I think for most part, the one of the bigger things about having to eat plants, like even if you disregard everything else that we kind of talked about in terms of like plants' internal chemical defenses and all of that good stuff, majority of plant agriculture is heavily reliant on pesticides, right? Which kind of this topic covers a little bit of the thing that I wanted to talk about before is like the whole sustainability thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because if
Go.
you look at modern agriculture, like the way that it's done on scale is usually it's like a monocrop type operation where you have like massive fields with like a single thing growing on it, right? Which never really happens in nature. And it requires inordinate amount of fertilizer to make it viable, right? And it also requires chemical pesticides to destroy pretty much everything else because everything that affects the yield must be eliminated, right? Because the yield has to be maximal in order to make the whole thing worthwhile. And they also use pesticides, interestingly enough. Like again, some of the stuff I learned from the show, but
Clarkson.
Clarkson's Farm. I really recommend to watch it to anybody. It's really good. It's funny and it shows really the amount of effort it takes and the heartbreak and everything that goes into it to produce people's food. I think a lot of people don't really fully appreciate how that stuff gets done and like what the costs are and what's at stake and all these other things. But anyway, so when they do grain, like when they harvest wheat, for instance, it has to be a certain percentage of moisture in order to kind of qualify for the mill and for all these other things. And because a lot of these pesticides also work as a desiccant, they basically spray them a couple of weeks before harvest to reduce the moisture content. So, and I think there's like regulations in different countries is like how close to the harvest time they can spray them with pesticide, but it's been sprayed very recently prior to it being harvested. So a lot of people consume a lot of pesticides with their food, and especially if they're eating plant-based, because none of that stuff is possible. None of the stuff that's commercially viable. Like if you only eat only organic, you're probably in a much better position compared to people who can't afford that or just don't know and they just buy regular groceries off the shelf at their supermarket. But people consume a lot of pesticides.
You
Like
know,
orders of magnitude more compared to like years ago. And the kind of effects that they have on our body, it's kind of hard to say. The whole GMO thing,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the only reason that these things are GMO is so that they withstand the pesticides better. It's kind of like It's like a binary agent. You know, you have a GMO crop that is, you know, less susceptible to some specific pesticide, and then you get sold these things as a combo, and that's how you do your business, right?
The thing is, actually it bothers me a lot because I mean, from a health perspective, I I've seen certain plants look certain way. For example, where I come from, I've seen what mango looks like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take mango from like Africa or maybe Mexico or anywhere else where they
Where it
actually plant
naturally
it,
grows, let's say.
yeah. And you look at some of these that we have here, it looks very um like picture me, like something that came out of the photo, like like it doesn't
It's
really
it's
look
kind of like
natural.
how your burger looks at the McDonald's menu versus how your burger looks when they give it to you. Like the
You get
two look nothing
it?
alike.
Yeah, so this thing's bothering me, and I used to, I think I had like a conversation about it like a while ago. I was like, many people believe that they are eating healthy by eating like a lot of like veggies and plant stuffs and like, but yeah, except you are actually very intentional. Maybe you grow your own by yourself. I don't really think you are eating healthy like this
Hmm.
because the chemicals and like the way it was made or like the way it was actually like preserved to be able
Right.
to the shelf
Because
life
usually they harvest them before they are fully ripe, right? Because they need to be transported half across the planet, which takes time. So
exactly,
if they gather them when they're ripe, they're gonna be rotten in 2 days. So that's not gonna get
exactly,
anywhere, right? And they have
exactly.
all these different tricks for, oh, let's pump it full of methane in order to artificially speed up the ripening process,
Do you
right?
see that?
Yeah. They're also like selectively bred for good looks. Like the apples, they look great, but they taste like crap most of the time. Same thing happens with tomatoes. Like from my childhood, I remember that the vegetables were way more flavorful when I was a kid compared to right now, and maybe compared to right here, because I think it really
It's
depends also how
here,
they're
yeah,
grown.
the region too.
So here, most things you buy at the store, they don't smell like anything in particular. They don't really taste like anything in particular. They're like pale echoes of what the real thing actually tastes like. But I guess if you never tried the real thing, you would
You
never
wouldn't
know.
know,
You would
yeah,
just think like, oh, the tomatoes just taste like that because that's how they taste. And it's like, well, no. If you were to try like an organic heirloom tomato, you realize that it's like it has a lot of flavor and it has a particular smell too. The
yeah.
other thing too is again because of monocropping and because of use of fertilizer, like the soil degradation that happens year over year
Hmm.
is a big problem, right? Like because
Yeah.
soil is basically like almost like a living organism. Like it has
Mhm.
all these bacteria and it has like worms and like all these other things in it, and it has like things being composted through the soil. But eventually, if you grow things on it year after year after year, all of those nutrients and all of that stuff gets sucked out. And like so when people say fertilizer, it's usually like some sort of nitrogen-based fertilizer, and nitrogen, for protein building, like for growth and all of that stuff. But there's a bunch of stuff besides nitrogen that these things normally would get from healthy soil. And people say that nutritional quality of vegetables right now is basically several orders of magnitude worse than 50, 100 years ago. It's just because the soil is depleted so much, right? So you're not even getting everything you're supposed to be getting out of it, right?
Yeah.
And which again also causes other problems. It's like soil runoff because they have to be irrigated. Like that water washes off a bunch of stuff. Like the soil is basically getting destroyed. One cool thing about it is with animal agriculture, with regenerative farming, because cows, they eat grass and then they poop a lot. And a lot of people will be like, oh, they produce methane, and that
Hmm.
raises the greenhouse gases in the environment. We're all gonna die because we're gonna boil alive. But when they poop, that stuff has a lot of nitrogen, so it's like a natural fertilizer. And people have
True.
done these experiments where they have grazing cattle restore the soil quality of a particular pasture over a course of like 2-3 years, because they move them around, they grow the grass, they bring the cattle over, they walk around, they kind of mix the soil, they sort of poop everywhere, all that nitrogen and everything else gets embedded in the soil regenerates, and then 4 or 5 years after, you have perfectly healthy soil conditions, and then you can grow agricultural things on it, right? But again, commercial farms, they don't do it like that. That's not the name of the game, right? It's all about streamlining operations and cutting, like, it kind of
Business.
almost
It's
reminds me.
business.
Sorry, say again.
It's the business. They just so they have
Yeah.
to be
It's all
going.
about optimization. It's like,
Mm.
uh, some company here designs some sort of electronical gadget and releases it on a market, and then somewhere in China, someone's like, I bet we can remove 75% of all electronic components from that motherboard and it'll still perform basically the same, right? So they just like remove all this stuff, and then they sell you like a USB charger for $5 that, if you're lucky, not gonna burn your house down.
Hopefully.
So yeah, but that's kind of the same idea, right? Like, you can do it through all of these processes, and then some Harvard MBA school guy comes in and be like, okay, we can remove this, we can remove that, and then you have a perfectly red tomato on your shelf that doesn't taste like anything and doesn't smell like anything, doesn't contain any nutrients, but still has a label tomato with the price tag on it, and you pay for it as if it was the real thing,
Premium
right?
tomato. You even pay
Premium,
more.
yeah, it's a premium tomato, but in fact, it's a cardboard tomato. It's a tomato-like substance. It has tomato-like qualities.
Yeah, and these are the reasons. These are the issues that I have with like the food here. And now I also watched this video about some guy who was talking about how like even outside of plant-based food, like he was talking about how he's able to eat bread in Europe
Mm-hmm.
and not have a problem. Like if he goes to Spain, like to all these other
Yeah.
places, he's able to eat bread and not have a problem. But when he eats the same bread here in America, like there is problem because
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at the label for bread, not inside like US, maybe Canada, it's basically flour, water, yeast, salt, done. You look at a package of American bread, it is just going to be softener this, preservative that, food colorant that, sweetener this. It's going to be like a list of 25 ingredients,
Mhm.
right? I heard that in Europe, some types of American, like I think Wonder Bread has to be officially classified as cake because of how much sugar it contains.
Interesting.
So it cannot even be called bread, right? So it's kind of like all these shenanigans with the labeling, where
Whitening
you know,
too. I heard
huh?
that they do like the whitening. They have like to make it
Like a
whiter, to make
bleaching agents or something like that.
yeah, yeah, to make it whiter, to make it different things. And I feel like these are the some of the issues with like the food that we have around here. And it's one of the reasons why I started to, I mean, initially when I first got introduced to the diet, these are the reasons why like I felt like, you know what, I'm just gonna try this. Put all these things aside because many, many people,
Mm-hmm.
especially millennials or like people around like been around for some time, most of us right now spend a lot of like money on like supplements, like you buy like supplement for this, that, the one for your energy, the one you take to sleep, in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
But most of these things are supposed to be actually like things that you get from like your
From your
diet, like
food.
your
Yeah.
food. So, and you can't really get it because the things that we call food here don't really have enough of those. For
Yeah.
example, like many people have to still spend a lot of money, especially if you go to the gym. Like many people spend a lot of money, like protein, like the things we actually call protein don't even have as much protein as it is. As it should.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess, um, if you take out like especially like if you take out like the plants one or like the other types of things. But I was just, I was just thinking about it, and I felt like we need to actually have a more sensitization or like more um, intervention in terms of like the food culture around here. Like
Hmm.
food should not make people sick. For example, but alas, this is most of what is happening around. And
Yeah.
sickness does not necessarily mean that you are in a hospital, like yeah, on a drip or
Yeah, it's
something.
just it's more about quality of life, right?
Yeah, like it just affects your quality of life. Like the food you eat can affect you in so many ways that you don't even understand. Mentally too,
Oh
because
yeah.
you could eat certain types of food and then you just find yourself being anxious for no reason, like over time, and like affects your mood, affects how you think, your brain. Like for example, MSG.
Hmm.
MSG has been, we shouldn't even go into spices because that's another kind of worms entirely, because there's, and all these things are really inside the food that like you buy at the restaurant or like stuff around. So it concerns me a lot. Concerns me.
Yeah, no, it's certainly true. I mean, I pretty much don't eat spices. I think I use salt. I occasionally use black pepper, but not even that much. So in terms of spices, definitely. Like sometimes I hear about people, it's like, oh, I'm putting turmeric in my coffee or whatever. And
What?
then, yeah, yeah, people do weird things. It's like, why
Okay.
would you want to eat turmeric? You know, it does not get
Okay.
absorbed by, like, the funny thing is like, okay, we kind of talked a little bit about how your body mostly like knows what it's supposed to be doing, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So people say, oh, in order to increase absorption of turmeric compounds into your body, you should mix it with black pepper because papaver in pepper will help. And it's like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
your body explicitly does not want to absorb anything from turmeric. Why are you forcing it to do so? Like, do you think you know better?
Oh my God.
So
Oh my
yeah,
God.
it's kind of funny. So
The amount of
yeah,
stuff like people consume. So I think the whole essence of this is just like, I mean, it would be nice if we could consistently. I mean, we talked a bit about like the cost, but if you have the means to be very intentional about like what you eat and you're able to like afford like certain diet, I would say it's better to do this than to spend that same budget on like supplements or like something
supplements and
else
then
or like
eventually drugs. Because that's the other
yeah.
thing I was gonna say. You were saying like, oh, people switch to plant-based diets because it's cheaper. It's like
Yeah.
it's cheaper now, but then the outcome is gonna be, well, first of all, your quality of life is likely gonna go down because you're gonna have all of these different things happening to your body 5 years down the line, right? Obesity and all these other things. It's the one thing about it is like people don't really, nobody's really educated about nutrition. Even people who like study nutrition, I think, because that industry is so heavily captured by food
Yeah.
companies and pharma
Yes.
companies, the stuff that they learn there has very little to do with actually what's good for you, and then they, out of best intentions, perpetuate it to everybody else. But for most people, they don't even know why they think that eating vegetables is good. Like, why do you think that they're like, oh, you must have your vegetables? Like, why do you think that? Where did that idea come? Where, like, how did it plant itself in your head in such a way that you basically treat it as gospel? And I think that like people just hear it when they're little children from their parents, who heard it from, maybe
TV.
their parents or TV or doctor, be like, oh, you must follow the food pyramid. The thing is, people, broadly speaking, at least up until 2018 or so, people were mostly likely to listen to their doctors and like the figures of authority when it came to health and diet and stuff.
Mhm.
So when the figures of authority came on television and said, "Oh, you're supposed to eat 250 grams of carbohydrates every day through bread and pasta and vegetables," people said, "Okay, fair enough. I'm gonna do that because I care about my health and I want to do the right thing." because everyone honestly thought that they were being given good advice. But, I don't think that it played out in a way that people would have hoped, because, you look at like chronic rates of obesity in children, especially. Like, we were camping and then going to the beach, and just the amount of fat children that I see, like children, like 7-year-olds who are fat. Like, it's not normal. Like, it's one thing, like if like a 2.5-year-old is a little bit chubby, right? Because they're growing, but like,
Mm-hmm.
like 7-year-old boys who have breasts basically because of how fat they are, like, that's not normal. Also, it happened some years back. It was probably around 2020 when we went back to Russia, and it was in the summer, so it was like going to the beach as well quite a lot. And I remember that something was bothering me a little bit, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. But then eventually I realized what it was, and basically I realized that children look more like children, especially girls. Like, little girls look like children, whereas in Canada and in America, they look more adult.
Yeah.
Because I think because of like the amount of hormones in the food and all the other places,
Yeah.
they start developing way prematurely.
Yeah.
Like, 10-year-olds not supposed to have white hips and breasts. I'm sorry. Like, it's just not right.
I've
Right?
seen it too. I noticed it, especially in the US. But
Especially in the US. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like, boys are not supposed to have man boobs ever. And little girls, prepubescent girls, are not supposed to have breasts either. It just doesn't make sense. And I think it has to do with the type of food they eat.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
in that sense, we're completely cooked. People don't know where these ideas came into their head, but they follow them and they never really question them. And I think the other thing too is, because of how early these thoughts are introduced into your worldview, you're going to be very protective of them, because they're like at the very foundation of your identity.
Mm-hmm.
So if you thought your entire life, since you learned how to speak and talk, you think that eating vegetables is a good thing, and then somebody comes in and says, oh no, that's completely bogus,
Like,
it's going to offend you very deeply, and you're going to be like really, really trying to protect that really, really hard. So people kind of get a little bit irrational when you expose them to this kind of thinking. So yeah, that's
what's worse
kind of
right now? You know what's worse? I'm gonna add to that. Like, at least before, people were listening to doctors, professional trained people. Right now, do you know who they listen to?
TikTok?
Influencers on TikTok.
Yes.
This is what gets to me, because the person you're listening to on TikTok. Listen, one time, I came across this video on TikTok. Someone said she has a concussion that, someone said they have a concussion that cures genotype, like changes your genotype. Like, if you are AS, and you eat this stuff, like, it changes your genotype to A, or like if you're SS to. Listen, there are many outrageous content on those places.
Yeah,
And
the snake oil salesmen have always been around, and, people will fall for that kind of stuff. But I mean, by that same logic, it's like, why people should listen to anything that we say, because we are wannabe influencers on YouTube, right? So
no, I'm not saying. I'm not even. I hope people do their research and like make the informed decisions, and but my concern here is, like, you should listen to people who know what they're saying. For example, like,
but
you said, like,
that's the
professionals.
thing, right? We talked
professionals.
about it. We talk about it. Well, first, I think right now there's a big crisis in terms of expert opinions, because I think the pandemic really highlighted the fact that, we've been told to listen to the experts, and now all of this information is coming out basically saying that everything that was said was completely 180, and, all the crazy conspiracies ended up not being conspiracies and all that kind of stuff. So That's why I'm saying like the trust in the expert class has never been this low. And
especially.
there's this kind of approach. It's like people are super fast to defer to science in a way where, again, it's kind of this cargo cult of science. They have this appreciation that somewhere somebody's doing some science and that science has all the answers. And if you have a right study in front of you, you know, you can prove everything, which is, again, not true. Like, it's scientific method is just about having a hypothesis and then running some experiments to establish whether the proposition holds or not.
And it's really very small size. Like it's
And
not.
again, like, what qualifies as an expert? So, like, you know, oh, somebody has a degree from some institution and that qualifies them as an expert. Like, a lot of these people were telling us all of these things that ended up being not correct, and we're supposed to just take it on faith. And when you do your research, again, like especially in nutritional sciences, so much of it is so heavily biased because of commercial interest of like large food producers,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's you can find anyone on the internet that will confirm your point of view, and you can anchor yourself to that person and say, okay, this is the person that I trust, and I take everything they say as gospel, and I'll be doing whatever they're telling me to do and ignore the outcomes if they're bad. And I'll celebrate any tiny positive change, and I'll just dismiss every negative change. Like, I've seen that happening a lot too. So from that point of view, why should they trust anything we say? Probably they shouldn't. Can they find content corroborating our point of view? They can. Can they find content debunking our point of view? They can. So it's a complete crapshoot right now. It's a massive free-for-all.
You know.
So yeah, it's really hard to be in this state, and that's why I mostly don't try to proselytize my way of life to other people, because it's just pointless.
I mean, we just
we just did for 3 episodes, but
we just see. This is how I say it, right? People can give you advice. Everyone can give you opinions. They can share opinions with you. It's up to you what you do with your opinion. If you feel this is something that resonates with you, like, yeah, good. But everyone should make informed decision. And I would like, but the thing is, like you said, this is where the challenge is. There are some areas of science, or the areas of that we call science, some study that we call science, that I feel like lost its integrity along the way.
mm-hmm.
And this, for example, nutrition, it's still science. I feel like there are still some people or like some places where you can find like good information that can help you in different ways. But
I think it's just like certain clinical trials are not possible due to like ethics boards, because that would basically mean like human experimentation, which is not going to be allowed. So you cannot even get those results in a ethical society, you know.
Exactly. So like, it's one part of science that I don't really understand how they're actually doing the study. For example, when it comes to nutrition, it's not just for a particular geographical location. There is, it cuts across like different parts of the world. Everyone has different types of like diet and like nutritional value and stuff like this, whatever. But in most of these studies, in most of these books, or like people who graduate from big universities, the research and stuff is based on a particular geographical location, particular area.
Well, I mean, they have like different ways. Like you can aggregate a bunch of studies from different locations and put them in a meta study that analyzes it as a whole. So
is that what they do? Because
I think that's what they do. The bigger problem is that a lot of the dietary studies are all sort of epidemiological studies, and they're basically just asking people, giving people questionnaires. Because like if you want to have a properly designed study, you need to take like a sample of 100 people and then like lock them in a metabolic ward where they can't leave and everything they eat is heavily controlled, and you have to have them there for like a year, and then you can have some semblance of outcomes that can be interpreted reasonably well. But that's never going to happen because it's going to cost so much money. No one's ever be able, like no university will be able to afford it. And like, where would you even find willing participants to do that stuff for so long? And then like, if we, let's say we want to say, oh, toxicity of certain plants. It's like, well, you're going to deliberately feed people plants for a year to establish if they're toxic or not. That's not very ethical either. So that's not going to happen. So like a lot of these things just can't happen. So like you cannot have a study on it. But there are some changes, at least from what I'm hearing in the United States, because they have the new guy for the health, right? And I heard them say that they want, first of all, they want the studies to be replicated, because again, there's massive replication crisis in sciences where somebody does a study, they publish the results, and then other group tries to repeat the same experiment and they get nowhere near the outcomes that the first group got. So it's like not replicatable. Because the whole idea is like, if it's an actual phenomenon, if you do the study 3 times, you would get roughly the same result 3 times, right? But if you get different result every time, that means the original study is useless, right? It doesn't prove anything.
Is it still a study, or we're just assuming?
No, I mean, it's still a study. The thing is, again,
if you get 3 results 3 times, this is not, I mean, it's a study, but it's not, the integrity is not good, because
right.
Because 2 times people 2 should be 4.
People do, yeah. 2 times 2 should be 4 pretty much every time, right? If it's not, you're in big trouble.
Yeah. So
and like most of the, like 80% of things or something like very high figure that they can be replicated independently, which means that they're bogus. But because of people's sort of faith in science and the sort of cargo cult of science, these things drive policy, even though if you try replicating it, it doesn't replicate, which means that the conclusions are bogus and they should not be used to drive policy, but they do. So I think he said that they were going to be asking for replication before it has the power to drive any kind of policy, right?
Honestly, I want to say something that might be very controversial, and I don't have proof to back myself up, but I have a feeling that in the US, especially, that there might be some less the people who are in charge of like this type of policies might not really like put a lot of effort into it, because the food that people eat conditions their health, and there is a particular industry that benefits from people not feeling good.
Yeah, that's true too. Like the whole thing is a massive set of perverse incentives. I completely agree with that.
So like there's a trickle-down effect, and they just keep it this way, and nobody is trying to because everybody knows this food is not good for you. Like, you can look at it and everyone knows that you're not doing yourself good. And but I guess I should stop here, because I better have proof for what I'm saying.
I think if you look at the system and the kind of outcomes that it has, I don't think it's too far-fetched to think that. I mean, if there's people who are being paid to not notice certain things, they're not going to notice those things, right? And the other thing too is, right now, if you do a study, and the study is usually like there's some commercial or corporate interests that are sponsoring a lot of this research in a lot of ways. Because a lot of companies, they give a lot of money to the universities, and university science departments run those studies. So there's like clear chain of financial influence, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, if you run a study and it doesn't prove your hypothesis, you're not going to publish anything saying like, oh, we tried it and it actually didn't pan out at all. Like, you're only going to publish stuff that fits the hypothesis that you're trying to prove. So how many studies don't even get published?
Is this still a study? I think.
No, I mean, it's still a study. That's the second part of it. It's like, first of all, require replication, and second, if it was like a publicly funded study, you're supposed to publish it regardless the outcome, because even having a null hypothesis is valuable than not having anything published at all. But the other big part of it is that in the academic world, the only way to get up the ranks is to publish. So the more things you publish, the higher your prestige is as an academic. So there's, again, this incentive of publishing as much as possible. So I don't know, it's a den of snakes, that whole thing.
Especially in this industry. I feel like I can trust to a certain degree some studies. Anything you say right now, anything we talk about, there will be a study to back it up. There's a study that says this, there's a study that says that. But so, like, for me, I find the integrity of these studies to be quite questionable, you know? And especially in this industry, in this particular industry, the nutrition, food, science, and stuff industry, I find it very, very, questionable. But then again, this is not where I earn my living, so I can't say for sure.
No, yeah, that does make sense. And I think a lot of people, myself included, don't really understand how even to read, because they're written in a very specific language, like the published documents, right? Like, you have to be able to at least read the introduction and get like the crucial figures. Is like, how was the study designed? How was it powered? Like, how many participants were it? Like, what's the data collecting methodology? And like, a lot of the studies that people publish, they publish some figures, but they never publish any raw data, because they do some statistical processing on the data and they publish whatever the result of that thing was. But knowing all the tricks like p-hacking and all these other things, with statistics, you can make any data set look like any other data set. And none of them publish raw data, so you can't really trust anything, and like, you can't replicate it. So, and it's considered completely above board and totally normal. So when it comes to studies, I don't know. It's the science should happen overall, and it's given us a lot. But at the same time, there's a lot of perverse incentives in that entire domain, and people don't declare their biases, and they don't declare their conflicts of interest as much as they should have been. And that's why having a study is nice, but having common sense and reasoning and logical thinking probably works even better, in absence of studies.
I'll give you an example, right? If right now, when people hear cholesterol, this is something like triggers. Like, people don't even understand what is this, but they say, oh yeah, this contains like cholesterol. So now, like, you're like,
but like for 30 years, out of every television set, or maybe even more, for like 50 years, out of every thing, like, you open your trash bin to throw away a sandwich wrapper, and it's like, by the way, cholesterol out of there, So again, that thought entered into their worldview and anchored itself in their own brain, and they don't know where it came from or how they came to think about it that way, or what's the, like, anything. There's no preceding steps. They just have a conclusion that they now believe and repeat. But there's no work done prior to reaching that conclusion. It's just like implanted conclusion from outside. So I think the only way that you can reasonably be reasonable in this thing is that, like, if you take your assumptions that you have about things and try to walk them back to their origin as much as possible and see whether or not that still makes sense.
Exactly.
Which is hard to do. And it takes time and effort, and not many people are going to go into it to these extremes. And it has this other problem too, is like, for instance, on a lot of these things, I went to the extremes in terms of trying to learn about it, but I am not really great at explaining it further down the line to somebody else. Like, I tried doing it in these episodes to the best of my ability, but like listening back to it, it's like, I could do much better. Like, it's like that joke. It's like being a dog. You understand everything, but you can't say anything, you know?
We try. We have to give ourselves some. The thing is, we're not experts. And I think even you, especially like you, I feel like, I mean, I don't think any one of us is expecting you to have all the knowledge of it, but you're just like sharing the parts that you know of and like how you know it. So like if anyone has a different opinion, for sure, like they should, it's a conversation. We can continue the conversation.
Well, as long as they understand that their opinion is completely wrong, then we can agree.
Well, there is that too. So yeah, but it is what it is. We just try our best here. Like we're not. I mean, I don't think anyone is expecting us to be like food expert or like diet experts and stuff like this. We're software engineers. That's all.
But I think the fact that we are software engineers has a certain imprint on how we approach problem solving, right? Usually, and again, that's kind of coming back to the whole, ranting and bitching about like the new generation of software engineers who like look at the error message and are puzzled about what to do, and like they just like kind of paralyzed. Whereas older school would start sort of unwinding it back to its origin to understand why it's happening. So I think I kind of use the same process. It's like, okay, I hold this hypothesis A. Why do I think it's correct? What is the corroborating evidence? What is the evidence that disproves it? Like all of these things. And then for all of those things, you kind of start reaching out far and wide. And then once you receive corroborations from different angles, like from different people in different fields, you look at it and be like, well, if one thing points to it, fair enough. But like if 5 separate things point to it, it's probably true, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you have to be prepared to have your mind changed. Because a lot of the stuff that I see, well, granted, I see like some rage bait content on the internet, but people are not considering that they could be wrong. Like, I am considering that I could be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong. I'm fairly certain that my understanding on these things is correct, but I still reserve some possibility that I am misinterpreting some things or I misunderstand some things and I'm incorrect about some things. And if somebody can, again, give me the chain of reasoning as per why that is the case, I would likely reincorporate it and go ahead. It's like, I used to believe all the same things about nutrition before I started. Like, oh yeah, eating your vegetables is great. Like having a salad is really good for you. And then after I started going into it, I was like, I don't really think that's necessarily the case, up to a point where it's like, that's definitely not the case. I'd rather not do that ever again, right? So, like, my mind was changed on it, so yours maybe could be too.
Yeah. It's a conversation. So, like, yeah, let's all continue the conversation, like, as it goes. Like, if anyone has, like, a different opinion, they can share with us. Maybe we learn from theirs, too. So, like, yeah, it is what it is, so... Bon, c'est ça. Sorry. That's it. That's it from me. And
that's all, folks.
It was nice to be able to talk about this kind of things with you. I mean, it's not every time we talk about TypeScript and data types and and stuff like this, but yeah, it's nice to have.
I think we'll probably wrap up this topic here for the time being, because I think that I mostly said everything that I wanted to say. Probably not in enough depth, but yeah, we don't want to overload it too much. And again, I'm suggesting that people try it. and that they learn more about it and don't dismiss it out of hand. And next time we'll probably be talking about how AI is going to take over the world again. So we'll be back to our regular scheduled programming.
All right.
All right,
Thank you,
Mo.
Vasili.
Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.